When billionaire CEO Grayson Steele offers waitress Sienna Brooks $10,000 for a single dinner, she can't afford to say no. But what starts as a transaction soon blurs into something dangerously real. Can love survive when it began with a price tag? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The dinner rush at Le Ciel was in full swing. Sienna Brooks balanced 3 plates on her arm as she weaved through the tables. At 26, she had mastered the art of the perfect waitress smile, warm enough to get good tips, but not so friendly that customers thought they could get too personal. Filet mignon medium rare, she announced, placing the plate in front of a middle-aged businessman. Lobster risotto and the sea bass special. Can I get you anything else? The customers barely looked up from their phones. This was normal at Le Ciel, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, where a single meal cost more than what Sienna made in a day. Just keep the wine coming, the businessman said, not bothering to make eye contact. Sienna nodded and retreated to the kitchen. Her feet ached, and she still had 4 hours left in her double shift. The envelope in her pocket felt heavy, a final notice for her brother's rent. If she didn't come up with $200 by the end of the week, Matt would be evicted from his apartment. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Matt. Any luck with the money? Sienna closed her eyes and leaned against the wall. Their parents had left them with nothing but debt when they died 2 years ago. Since then, she had been working 3 jobs while Matt finished college. She was so close to getting him through his final year. Just a few more months. Brooks, the manager snapped. Table 12, VIP. Sienna straightened her uniform and put on her professional smile. Table 12 was the most secluded spot in the restaurant, usually reserved for celebrities or business people who valued privacy. As she approached, she saw him, a man sitting alone, studying the wine list. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than her car. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and when he looked up, his steel-gray eyes caught her off guard. "Good evening," she said. "Welcome to Le Ciel. My name is Sienna, and I'll be your server tonight." The man studied her face a moment too long before responding. "Grayson Steele. I reserved the Chateau Margaux 1982. Sienna nodded, trying not to react to the $2,000 bottle of wine. "Right away, Mr. Steele." When she returned with the wine, she noticed he was still alone. "Are you expecting someone to join you, sir?" "No." His voice was deep and confident. "I prefer to dine alone." As she poured his wine, Sienna felt his eyes on her, not in the creepy way some customers stared, but with a calculating intensity that made her nervous. "Have you worked here long?" he asked. 3 years, she answered, surprised by the personal question. "You don't seem to fit here." Sienna stiffened. "I'm sorry if my service isn't up to your standards." "That's not what I meant," he interrupted. "You're different from the other staff, less rehearsed." She didn't know how to respond to that. "Would you like to hear tonight's specials?" Grayson ordered without looking at the menu, then went back to his phone. Sienna served his courses throughout the evening, and each time he would ask her another unexpected question. "Do you enjoy working here?" "What would you do if you didn't?" "Have to work?" "Do you always wear your hair up like that?" By the time she brought his dessert, Sienna was thoroughly confused. Wealthy people rarely showed interest in the staff. "Will there be anything else, Mr. Steele?" she asked, hoping the answer was no. He looked up from his barely touched chocolate souffle. "Actually, yes. Sit down." "I'm sorry, but I'm not allowed to. I've already spoken to your manager. You're on break for the next 15 minutes. Sienna glanced toward the kitchen and saw her manager nodding in approval. Reluctantly, she sat across from Grayson Steele. "I have a proposition for you," he said, closing his leather portfolio. Warning bells rang in Sienna's head. She'd heard about rich men making inappropriate offers to waitresses. "I'm not interested in whatever you're about to suggest," she said firmly, starting to stand. $10,000, he said. "For one dinner." Sienna froze. "Excuse me? Have dinner with me tomorrow night. I'll pay you $10,000. She stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "Is this some kind of joke?" "I never joke about money, Ms. Brooks." He slid a business card across the table. "I'm the CEO of Steele Enterprises. Look me up if you don't believe me. Sienna recognized the name. Steele Enterprises was a multi-billion-dollar tech company. This man could probably buy the restaurant without blinking. Why would you pay me to have dinner with you? She asked, suspicious. I find you intriguing, and I don't have time for dating. This arrangement would be simpler. So you want to pay me to, what? Pretend to be your date? I want engaging dinner conversation with someone who doesn't want something from me. Just dinner. Nothing more. Sienna almost laughed at the absurdity. And you think paying someone $10,000 means they don't want something from you? For the first time, Grayson Steele smiled. It transformed his face, making him look younger, almost approachable. You're proving my point. Most people would have already said yes. Sienna thought of Matt's rent notice, of the electricity bill she couldn't pay, so of the 3 jobs that still weren't enough. This isn't, weird or illegal, right? Just dinner. Just dinner. In a public restaurant. You can leave anytime you want. She knew she should say no, but $10,000 would solve so many problems. When and where, she finally asked. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, I'll send a car. He wrote something on a napkin and pushed it toward her. Half now, half after dinner. Sienna looked down at the check he'd written. $5,000. More money than she'd ever held at once. I don't understand why you're doing this, she said honestly. Grayson stood, buttoning his jacket. You don't need to understand. Just be ready at 7. After he left, Sienna stared at the check, feeling like she'd made a deal with the devil. Next morning, Sienna cashed the check before Grayson Steele could change his mind. She paid Matt's rent and the overdue electricity bill, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Where did you get this money? Matt asked when she handed him the receipt for his paid rent. I picked up some extra shifts, she lied, unable to tell her brother the truth. She spent the day alternating between relief about the bills and anxiety about the evening ahead. By the time the sleek black car arrived at her apartment building, she had changed outfits 5 times, finally settling on the only decent dress she owned, a simple black number she'd bought for her parents' funeral. The car took her to Celestial, the most exclusive restaurant in the city, a place where Sienna could never afford to eat. When she entered, Grayson was already waiting. He stood when he saw her, his eyes taking in her appearance. You look lovely. Thank you, she said stiffly, sitting across from him. So how does this work? Do you have topics you want to discuss? Grayson's mouth twitched. Most people start with small talk. Most people aren't being paid to have dinner. Fair enough. He poured her a glass of champagne. Tell me about yourself. Sienna Brooks. There's not much to tell. I work 3 jobs. I take care of my brother. That's my life. And before that, dreams, ambitions. Sienna took a sip of champagne to hide her discomfort. I wanted to be an artist. I studied art for 2 years before my parents died. What kind of art? Painting, mostly. She was surprised by his apparent interest. Abstract landscapes. Throughout dinner, Grayson asked questions and actually seemed to listen to her answers. It was strange to have someone so powerful focused entirely on her words. Why me? She finally asked. There must be dozens of women who would have dinner with you for free. That's precisely why, he said, his gray eyes serious. Everyone wants something from me, my money, my connections, my influence. It's refreshing to spend time with someone who's honest about the transaction. But you're still paying me. Yes, but the terms are clear. No false pretenses. As the evening progressed, Sienna found herself relaxing despite the bizarre situation. Grayson Steele was intelligent and surprisingly funny when he let his guard down. So you never date? She asked over dessert. Just paid dinners? I don't have time for relationships, he said. My company requires my full attention. Sounds lonely. It's efficient. But something in his expression suggested her comment had hit a nerve. When the car dropped her home, Grayson handed her an envelope. The other half, as promised. Sienna took it, feeling a mix of relief and something like disappointment. The evening had been strangely enjoyable, but now the transaction was complete. Thank you for dinner, she said formally. Grayson hesitated, then said something that surprised them both. Would you consider doing this again? Sienna stared at him. You want to pay me for another dinner? Same arrangement. Next Saturday, she Knew she should refuse, this wasn't normal, but the money would help Matt with his tuition payment. Same time, she found herself saying. Grayson nodded, and for a brief moment, Sienna thought she saw genuine pleasure in his eyes. As the car drove away, Sienna clutched the envelope and wondered what she had gotten herself into. Grayson Steele was dangerous, not because he seemed threatening, but because for a few moments during dinner she had forgotten this was a business arrangement, and forgetting that could only lead to trouble. 3 dinner dates later, Sienna found herself looking forward to Saturday evenings. Each time, Grayson would send a car to pick her up, take her to an expensive restaurant, and talk to her like she was the only person in the world. And each time he would hand her an envelope with $5,000 at the end of the night. "You seem different," Matt said one morning as they shared coffee in their small kitchen. "Happier," Sienna shrugged. "Things are just looking up. The bills are paid, and your tuition is covered for the semester." Matt studied her face. "Is there a guy?" "No," she said too quickly, "just extra work." But as she got ready for her 4th dinner with Grayson, Sienna couldn't deny that something had changed. She spent extra time on her hair and used some of the money to buy a new blue dress that brought out her eyes. When she arrived at the restaurant, Grayson was waiting as usual, but tonight there was a small gift box next to her plate. "What's this?" she asked, sitting down. "Open it," he said, watching her with those intense gray eyes. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small palette charm. "Because you're an artist," he explained when she looked confused. "I can't accept this," Sienna said, closing the box. "It's not part of our arrangement. Consider it a bonus." His tone was casual, but she could see tension in his jaw. "Why?" "Because I wanted to give you something. Is that so strange?" It was strange. Every dinner had followed the same pattern. This was different. This felt personal. "Thank you," she finally said, putting the bracelet on. "It's beautiful." Throughout dinner, Sienna caught Grayson looking at her bracelet, a small smile playing on his lips. When his hand brushed hers, reaching for the wine, neither of them pulled away immediately. "Tell me about your company," she said, trying to break the growing tension between them. "It's boring. Numbers and technology." "You never talk about yourself," she pointed out. 4 dinners and I still know almost nothing about Grayson Steele." He considered this. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Where did you grow up? Do you have family? What makes you happy besides making money?" Grayson looked uncomfortable but began to share. He had grown up wealthy but lonely, with parents who valued achievement over affection. He had started his company at 24 and turned it into a billion-dollar enterprise through sheer determination. "And friends, relationships?" Sienna pushed. "I have business associates. As for relationships," he hesitated. "They're complicated when you have money. People see the bank account, not the person." "Is that why you pay for company?" "So you know exactly what the relationship is." The question hung between them. Too honest, too revealing. "Yes," he finally admitted, "until you." Sienna's heart skipped. "What does that mean?" Before he could answer, a woman approached their table. Tall, elegant, and clearly wealthy, she looked at Grayson with familiar ease. "Grayson, darling," I thought. "That was you." She glanced at Sienna with thinly veiled curiosity. Grayson stood, his expression instantly guarded. "Victoria, what a surprise." "Aren't you going to introduce me to your date?" Victoria asked, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Sienna Brooks, this is Victoria Caldwell, an old friend." Victoria raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "More than friends once, if you recall." She turned to Sienna. "So you're Grayson's latest companion. You're different from his usual type." The way she said companion made Sienna feel cheap. She suddenly realized how this looked. Grayson Steele, billionaire CEO, with a waitress young enough to be noticed. "Victoria, we're trying to enjoy a private dinner," Grayson said firmly. "Of a course, darling, don't let me interrupt." Victoria placed a manicured hand on Grayson's arm. "Call me sometime, for old time's sake." After she left, an uncomfortable silence fell between them. "Is that what people think I am?" Sienna finally asked. "Your paid companion?" Grayson's face hardened. "What people think doesn't matter. It matters to me." Sienna felt something inside her crack. I don't want people to think, Sienna, Victoria is trying to get under your skin. Don't let her. But the spell was broken. For the rest of dinner, Sienna was quieter, more guarded. When the car dropped her home, Grayson handed her the envelope as usual. Next Saturday, he asked, but there was uncertainty in his voice. Sienna clutched the envelope, suddenly aware of what this looked like, what it was. I don't know, Grayson, maybe we should stop. Because of Victoria, don't let her. Because I'm starting to forget what this is, Sienna interrupted. And that's dangerous. Grayson reached for her hand, the first time he had deliberately touched her. What if I want it to be something else? The question hung in the air between them, full of possibilities and risks. What would that even look like? She asked softly. You're you and I'm me. Have dinner with me next Saturday, he said. Not for money, just because you want to. Sienna should have said no, but looking into his eyes, she found herself nodding. Okay, but no envelope, no car, just dinner. For the first time, Grayson smiled without reservation, and Sienna felt something shift inside her chest. The next week was the longest of Sienna's life. She kept wondering if she had made a mistake. What did someone like Grayson Steele really want with her? On Friday, her co-worker Jenny approached her at Le Ciel. Is it true? She asked, holding up her phone. Sienna froze when she saw the screen. It was a gossip website with a photo of her and Grayson leaving a restaurant. The headline read, Billionaire bachelor Grayson Steele's new girlfriend, who is the mystery woman. It's not what you think, Sienna said, but her face was burning. By the end of her shift, 3 more co-workers had shown her different articles. One even implied she was a gold digger targeting one of America's most eligible bachelors. When she got home, Matt was waiting with the same gossip site open on his laptop. Is this why we suddenly have money? He asked, his expression hurt. You're dating some rich guy and didn't tell me. It's complicated, Matt. Are you sleeping with him for money? The blunt question made her flinch. No, it's not like that. We just have dinner. And he pays you? Matt's voice was incredulous. Sienna couldn't lie anymore. She explained everything. The offer, the dinners, the money. With each word, Matt's expression grew more troubled. So you're what, his rental girlfriend? Sienna, that's... I know how it sounds, she interrupted. But tomorrow is different. No money, just a real date. Matt shook his head. These guys don't change, sis. He's just playing a different game. His words haunted her as she got ready the next evening. This time, no car came. Grayson had texted her the address of a small Italian restaurant in a quiet neighborhood, nothing like the exclusive places they usually went. When she arrived, he was waiting outside, dressed more casually than she had ever seen him, dark jeans, and a gray sweater that matched his eyes. You came, he said, sounding genuinely relieved. I said I would. The restaurant was cozy and unpretentious. No one recognized Grayson here, and they were seated at a corner table like any normal couple. I've never seen you in jeans before, Sienna commented, trying to ease the tension between them. Is that good or bad? Good. You look more like a person and less like a CEO. He laughed, a sound she was starting to crave. I am a person, Sienna. That's what I've been trying to show you. The evening was different from their previous dinners. Without the transaction hanging over them, they both relaxed. Grayson told her about his childhood dream of being an architect before his father pushed him into business. Sienna shared stories about her parents and how she had put her own dreams on hold to help Matt. You should paint again, Grayson said. You light up when you talk about it. Maybe someday, when Matt graduates and I have more time. What if you had time now? Sienna tensed. I don't need your charity, Grayson. It's not charity to want to help someone you care about. The words hung between them. Care about. Did he care about her? Did she care about him? After dinner, they walked along the riverfront. When Sienna shivered in the cool evening air, Grayson put his jacket around her shoulders. The gesture was so simple, so normal, yet it felt more intimate than anything they had shared before. I saw the articles, she said finally. About us. Grayson's expression darkened. I'm sorry. The press has always been intrusive. They think I'm your girlfriend. Does that bother you? Sienna stopped walking and turned to face him. I don't know what this is, Grayson. A few weeks ago you were paying me for my time. Now we're on a real date. It's confusing. For me too, he admitted. I've never done this before. Done what? Felt this way. He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. I tried to keep things simple, controlled, but there's nothing simple about how I feel when I'm with you. Sienna's heart raced. This was dangerous territory. Grayson. Before she could finish, he leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle at first questioning, but when she responded, it deepened into something urgent and overwhelming. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. I shouldn't have done that, he said, but he didn't look sorry. No, you shouldn't have. But Sienna was smiling. He drove her home himself that night in a car more modest than his usual. Outside her apartment building, he kissed her again, longer this time, his hands tangling in her hair. Have dinner with me again, he said against her lips. And breakfast, and lunch, every meal. Sienna laughed. That's a lot of food. I don't care what we eat. I just want to be with you. It was everything she had secretly begun to hope for, yet Sienna hesitated. What about your world, the press, people like Victoria? They don't matter, they will. I'm not from your world, Grayson. He touched her face gently. Maybe I don't want to be in that world anymore. It was a beautiful thought. But as Sienna watched his expensive car drive away, she wondered if Grayson Steele really understood what he was saying. Could a man who had everything really give it all up for a waitress with an art degree? And more importantly, could she trust that his feelings were real, not just another transaction in a different form? For the next 3 weeks, Sienna lived in a dream. Grayson called her every morning and every night. He took her to small, intimate restaurants where they could talk for hours without interruption. On Sundays, they walked through the park like a normal couple, his hand warm around hers. "For you're falling for him," Matt said one evening when she came home smiling after Grayson dropped her off. Maybe, she admitted. It was terrifying to even think it, but she couldn't deny the truth anymore. Just be careful, sis. I don't want to. See you get hurt. But Sienna didn't want to be careful. For the first time in years, she felt alive. Grayson had even convinced her to start painting again, setting up a small corner of her apartment with quality art supplies he had delivered. You need to express yourself, he had said. It's part of who you are. No one had ever seen her that clearly before. The only shadow on her happiness was the constant press attention. Every time they went out, photographers seemed to find them. Online articles speculated about their relationship, some calling her a gold digger, others wondering if she was just Grayson's latest fling. Ignore them, Grayson would say whenever she mentioned it. They don't know us. But the truth was, Sienna still felt like an outsider in Grayson's world. He never invited her to his penthouse apartment. He never introduced her to his friends or business associates. Their relationship existed in a bubble, separate from his real life. Then came the charity gala. I want you to come with me, Grayson said during dinner at their favorite Italian restaurant. It's for the Children's Hospital Foundation. Black tie. Sienna nearly choked on her wine. A gala with all your wealthy friends and colleagues. Yes, it's time you saw that part of my life. He reached across the table for her hand. And time they met the woman I'm falling in love with. The words made her dizzy. He had never said anything about love before. I don't have anything to wear to something like that, she said, deflecting because she was too overwhelmed to address what he had just implied. I'll take care of it. The next day, a stylist arrived at her apartment with a rack of designer dresses, along with shoes, jewelry, and even makeup artists for the event. Mr. Steele wanted you to have options, the stylist explained, helping Sienna try on gowns that cost more than her yearly rent. She finally chose a deep emerald dress that made her feel elegant rather than costume-like. As the makeup artist worked, Sienna tried to calm her nerves. Tonight would be the first time she entered Grayson's real world, the world of wealth and privilege she had only glimpsed from the outside. When Grayson picked her up, his eyes widened at the sight of her. You look stunning, he said, his voice thick with emotion. So do you. And he did, in his perfectly tailored tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of the city's most exclusive hotel. As they entered, Sienna felt every eye turned toward them. Grayson kept his hand at the small of her back, a steady reassurance against her nerves. "Grayson, there you are." A distinguished older man approached them, his smile polite but assessing. "The board members were hoping to speak with you about the Q3 projections." "Richard," Grayson nodded. "I'd like you to meet Sienna Brooks. Sienna, this is Richard Warren, my CFO." Richard's handshake was brief, his eyes already moving back to Grayson. "If you have a moment. Actually, I'd like Sienna to meet some people. First, we'll catch up later." As Grayson guided her through the crowd, introducing her to one important person after another, Sienna noticed a pattern. The men would shake her hand politely, but immediately turn their attention back to Grayson. The women would assess her outfit, her jewelry, her makeup, their smiles never reaching their eyes. "That's your girlfriend?" she overheard one woman whisper to another. "I heard he picked her up at a restaurant where she was serving tables." "It won't last," her friend responded. "Men like Grayson always come back to their own kind." Sienna tried to ignore the comments, focusing instead on Grayson, who seemed oblivious to the undercurrents around them. He proudly kept her by his side, his hand rarely leaving hers. Then Victoria Caldwell arrived, stunning in a red gown that seemed designed to capture attention. "Grayson," she purred, air kissing his cheek. "And Sienna still hanging on, I see." Grayson's jaw tightened. "Victoria, always a pleasure. Sienna, that dress is lovely. Grayson has excellent taste in everything." Her eyes flicked meaningfully to Grayson. "Did he tell you we're working together on the Jensen merger?" "No, he didn't," Sienna said, feeling a cold knot form in her stomach. "Oh yes, late nights at the office, just like old times." Victoria smiled. "Excuse me, I see the mayor just arrived." As she walked away, Sienna turned to Grayson. "You're working with her?" "It's business, Sienna. Nothing more. You could have mentioned it. I don't discuss work much with you because I want our time together to be different from the rest of my life." The word stung more than he probably intended. Different, separate, not real. "I need some air," Sienna said, pulling away from him. She found a quiet balcony overlooking the city lights. The night air was cool against her flushed skin. Everything about this evening made her feel like an imposter. The borrowed dress, the borrowed jewelry, the world she was visiting but didn't belong in. Champagne. A waiter offered her a glass, which she gratefully accepted. "First time at one. Of these events?" asked a voice beside her. An older woman with kind eyes had joined her on the balcony. "Is it that obvious?" The woman laughed. "Only to someone who's been watching. I'm Eleanor Steele." Sienna nearly spilled her champagne. "Steele? Ari, Grayson's mother?" "Yes." Eleanor's smile was warmer than Sienna expected. "He told me he was bringing someone special tonight. I wanted to meet you myself." "I'm not sure how special I am," Sienna admitted. "I don't really fit in here." "Neither did I once upon a time." Eleanor's gaze turned toward the city lights. "I was a receptionist when I met Grayson's father. Everyone thought I was after his money." "Were you?" "No. I was after his heart, but it took years for people to believe." "That," she turned back to Sienna. "My son doesn't bring women to these events, Ms. Brooks. Not ever. That tells me something important about how he feels about you." Before Sienna could respond, Grayson appeared at the balcony entrance, relief washing over his face when he saw her. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere." He stopped when he noticed his mother. "Mom, I see you've met Sienna." "Yes, and she's delightful. You should have brought her to dinner weeks ago instead of hiding her away." Grayson looked embarrassed. "I wasn't hiding her." "No? Then why haven't I met her until now?" Eleanor patted Sienna's hand. "Don't let him keep you a secret, dear. Secrets have a way of becoming problems." With that, she glided back into the ballroom. "I'm sorry about Victoria," Grayson said when they were alone. "And about my mother ambushing you. She was actually nice, unlike most people here." Sienna turned to face the city again. "Why haven't you introduced me to your family before, Grayson? Or shown me where you live? It's like you have two separate lives and I'm only allowed in one of them. That's not fair. I've been trying to protect you from all this. He gestured toward the ballroom. The scrutiny, the judgment. I wanted us to have time to just be us. But this is your reality. The galas, the business deals, people like Victoria. If I'm going to be part of your life, I need to know if I can handle all of it. Grayson stepped closer, turning her to face him. You are part of my life. The most important part. Everything else is just details. Pretty significant details. But Sienna softened as he pulled her into his arms. Stay with me tonight, he whispered against her hair. Come to my place. It was the first time he had invited her to his home, a step toward merging their separate worlds. Okay, she agreed, her heart racing with both excitement and apprehension. Grayson's penthouse took up the entire top floor of one of the city's most exclusive buildings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city lights. Everything was sleek, modern, and obviously expensive. This is where you live? Sienna asked, feeling suddenly small in her borrowed finery. When I'm not working. Grayson removed his tie, watching her reaction carefully. What do you think? It's beautiful. Impersonal but beautiful. He smiled at her honesty. Maybe it needs a woman's touch. The implication hung between them as he stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. I meant what I said earlier. I'm falling in love with you, Sienna Brooks. She trembled at the words. Grayson, everything is happening so fast. A month ago, you were paying me for dinner. And now I can't imagine my life without you. He kissed her softly. Stay with me. Not just tonight. What does that mean? Move in. Let me take care of you. You could quit those jobs you hate, focus on your painting. Matt could finish school without financial stress. The offer was tempting, a life without constant worry about money. But something about the way he phrased it bothered her. Take care. Give me like I'm a responsibility? No, like I love you. He kissed her again, more deeply this time, like I want to give you everything. Sienna let herself get lost in his touch, in the feeling of his hands sliding the straps of her dress down her shoulders. Tonight, she didn't want to think about what it all meant. She just wanted to be with him. Later, lying in his enormous bed with his arm around her, Sienna felt both perfectly content and strangely unsettled. She belonged here with Grayson, but did she belong in his world? I love you, he murmured sleepily against her hair. Sienna closed her eyes. I love you too, she whispered, realizing it was true. The next morning, Sienna woke to an empty bed and the smell of coffee. Wrapping herself in Grayson's shirt, she followed the aroma to the kitchen, where he stood making breakfast, dressed in only his pajama bottoms. Good morning, he smiled, handing her a cup. Sleep well? Better than I have in years. She took the coffee gratefully. You cook? Only breakfast, and only for special people. The domesticity of the moment made her heart ache with hope. Maybe they could make this work after all. As they ate, Grayson brought up his idea again. Think about moving in. You practically live with me anyway. It's only been a month, Grayson. When you know, you know. He looked so certain, so confident in what they had. Sienna's phone buzzed with a text. It was Matt. Have you seen this? Call me. Attached was a link to a gossip site. With growing horror, Sienna clicked on it and saw the headline, Billionaire Grayson Steele paid Waitress $50,000 for companionship before romance. The article detailed their arrangement, the paid dinners, the envelopes of cash, making it sound sordid and transactional. There was even a quote from an anonymous friend claiming Grayson had a history of paying women for their time. Grayson, she said, her voice shaking as she showed him the phone. His face darkened as he read the article. This is garbage. Someone is trying to hurt us. But it's partially true. You did pay me. For dinner conversation, not what they're implying. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. This is why I wanted to protect you from my world. The press will twist anything. Sienna felt sick. How did they find out? The only people who knew were you, me, and... She stopped, a terrible thought occurring to her. And who? Grayson prompted. My brother. But he wouldn't... the article mentions $50,000. He doesn't even know the exact amount. Grayson's expression changed. Victoria. What? She must have heard rumors and hired someone to dig into our relationship. This is exactly her style. The implications were overwhelming. So now everyone thinks I'm basically a high-class escort who managed to trick you into a relationship. It doesn't matter what people think, Grayson insisted, reaching for her. Sienna pulled away. It matters to me. My co-workers will see this. My brother's friends. Everyone will think I'll handle it. My PR team will release a statement. A statement? Sienna laughed bitterly. That's your solution. To have your people explain that you only paid me for dinner, not sex. How is that better? Sienna, please, don't let this come between us. But it was already too late. The article had exposed the fundamental imbalance in their relationship. His power, her need, the money that had brought them together. I need to go. She began gathering her things, desperate to escape. Sienna, stop. We can fix this, can we? Because from where I'm standing, this just confirms what I've been afraid of all along. We come from different worlds, Grayson. Worlds that don't mix well. That's not true. I love you. You love me. That's what matters. Sienna paused, her eyes filling with tears. Is it enough? When the whole world is judging us, when every person you work with thinks I seduced you for your money? I don't care what they think. But I do, the words burst from her. I care that our relationship started with you paying me. I care that everyone now knows it. I care that I'll always wonder if you're with me because you truly love me, or because I'm just another thing you decided to buy. The accusation hung between them, ugly and painful. Grayson's face went pale. Is that really what you think? That I bought you? Sienna wiped away her tears. I don't know what to think anymore. I just know I need space to figure it out. Don't leave like this, he pleaded. We can work through this together. But Sienna was already heading for the door, still wearing the emerald gown from the night. Before carrying her shoes in her hand, I'll call you, she said, not meeting his eyes. As the elevator doors closed between them, Sienna felt her heart breaking. She loved Grayson Steele. But maybe love wasn't enough to bridge the gap between their worlds, especially when that love had begun with a price tag attached. Sienna spent the next week in a fog of misery. She called in sick to her jobs, ignored calls from Grayson, and barely left her bedroom. Matt tried to comfort her, but nothing helped ease the ache in her chest. You need to talk to him, Matt finally said after finding her crying over a painting she had started. The day before the scandal broke. There's nothing to say. Sienna wiped her tears. It's better this way. Is it? Because you've been miserable, and from what I've seen on TV, he's not doing much better. Sienna looked up. What do you mean? Matt showed her his phone. There was Grayson on a business news channel, looking exhausted during a press conference. His normally perfect appearance was disheveled, with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated slump to his shoulders. He issued a statement defending you, Matt explained. Said the rumors were malicious lies spread by people trying to hurt you both. He didn't deny paying for dinners, but said it was his unusual way of getting to know someone without the complications of his position. That just makes it worse, Sienna groaned. Now everyone knows for sure. Sis, did you ever think maybe he's right? That what other people think doesn't matter? How can you say that? You were the one who called me his rental girlfriend. Matt had the grace to look ashamed. I was wrong. I've seen how you two look at each other. That's not something you can buy. His words stayed with Sienna long after he left for class. Was she letting other people's opinions ruin the best thing that had ever happened to her? Her phone rang. Grayson again. For the 100th time that week. But she couldn't bring herself to answer. What would she even say? Instead, she went back to her painting. It was a cityscape at night, with lights blurring into a tapestry of color. She had started it after their first real date, trying to capture the feeling of walking along the river with Grayson, when everything seemed possible. 3 hours later, lost in her art, Sienna was startled by a knock at the door. Assuming it was Matt who had forgotten his keys again, she opened it without checking. Grayson stood in the hallway, looking as if he hadn't slept in days. Please don't close the door, he said quickly. Just give me 5 minutes. Sienna's heart raced at the sight of him, but she kept her expression neutral. What are you doing here? I needed to see you, to explain. When she didn't invite him in, he continued speaking in the hallway. I've been thinking about what you said. About me trying to buy you. And you're right. Not about my intentions, but about how our relationship started. Sienna crossed her arms, trying to shield herself from the pain of seeing him. Grayson, just listen, please. He took a deep breath. When I first offered you money for dinner, it was because I was tired of fake relationships. Everyone in my world wants something from me. With you, the transaction was clear, but then something happened that I never expected. I fell in love with you. His voice cracked on the word love, and Sienna felt her resolve weakening. I thought I was protecting you by keeping you separate from my world, but I was really protecting myself. I was afraid that if you saw all of me, the business dinners, the social obligations, the politics of wealth, you might not want me anymore. That's not fair, Sienna said softly. You didn't give me the chance to decide for myself. I know. I should have trusted you more. He stepped closer, still in the hallway. The article was Victoria's doing. She admitted it after I confronted her. Why would she do that? Because she wants what we have, real connection, not the superficial relationships that fill our social circles. Grayson's eyes were intense, pleading. What we have is rare, Sienna. I don't want to lose it because of how it started. A tear slipped down Sienna's cheek. People will always talk, Grayson. They'll always see me as the waitress you paid for company. Let them talk. I don't care. He reached for her hands, and this time she didn't pull away. Do you love me? Yes, she whispered. But is it enough? It can be, if we're honest with each other. If we face everything together instead of letting me shield you from parts of my life. Sienna took a deep breath, gathering her courage. I need to know that you see me as an equal. Not someone to protect or take care of, but a partner. I do. He squeezed her hands. These past days without you, I realized I don't care about any of it. The company, the money, the status, if you're not there to share it with me. For the first time in a week, Sienna felt hope flicker in her chest. I don't want your money, Grayson. I want your trust, your respect. You have them, you've always had them. He cupped her face gently. Come back to me, please. Instead of answering, Sienna pulled him into the apartment and closed the door. Then she kissed him with all the longing and love she had been holding back. Is that a yes? He asked when they finally broke apart, his forehead resting against hers. It's a maybe, she said, but she was smiling. We have a lot to figure out. Together, he insisted. Together, she agreed. Over the next month, they worked to rebuild their relationship on a foundation of honesty and equality. Grayson introduced Sienna to his mother properly over dinner at Eleanor's home, where the older woman shared embarrassing stories of Grayson's childhood. He was always too serious, Eleanor told Sienna. Until you make him laugh. Sienna met Grayson's business partners, who were initially skeptical, but soon saw that her perspective brought something fresh to their discussions. She didn't pretend to understand the complexities of corporate finance, but her straightforward questions often cut through the jargon to the heart of issues. Most importantly, Grayson stopped trying to solve Sienna's problems with money. When she insisted on keeping one of her waitressing jobs, I need some independence, she explained. He respected her decision instead of arguing. The gossip about their relationship faded as new scandals captured the public's attention. Victoria moved to Europe for a fresh start, according to her social media posts. One evening, after Sienna had spent the day painting in the small studio Grayson had set up in his penthouse, he came home with a mysterious smile. I have something to show you, he said, taking her hand. What is it? I made a decision today. He led her to his office and showed her a document on his desk. I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations at Steel Enterprises. Sienna stared at him in shock. What? Why would you do that? Because I want a life outside of work, with you. He pulled her close. I'll still be involved in major decisions, but I've promoted Richard to handle daily operations. Grayson, you love your company. I would never ask you to give that up. You didn't ask, it's what I want. He kissed her forehead. I've spent my whole life chasing success. Now I want to chase happiness. Tears filled Sienna's eyes. Are you sure? I've never been more certain of anything. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Accept this. Sienna's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. I'm not asking you to marry me yet, he said, seeing her momentary panic. It's too soon for that, but I want you to know that's where I see us heading. He removed the ring from the box. Think of this as a promise, that whatever comes next, we face it as equals. Sienna looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. No grand gestures, no getting down on one knee. Grayson smiled. I thought you might prefer something more genuine. Just us, being honest. About what we want. You thought right. She held out her hand, letting him slip the ring onto her right hand rather than her left. A promise, not yet an engagement. I love you, Grayson Steele. And I love you, Sienna Brooks, no price tag attached. 1 year later, Sienna stood in the gallery surrounded by her paintings. Her first solo exhibition had drawn an impressive crowd, art critics, collectors, and friends. Matt, now graduated and working at an architecture firm, raised his champagne glass to her from across the room. To my talented sister, he called out, making her blush. Eleanor Steele, who had become like a mother to Sienna, was charming, the most influential critic in the city. Have you seen her use of light? Remarkable, don't you think? And Grayson, who had kept his promise to make more time for life outside work, stayed by Sienna's side, proudly introducing her to everyone as the artist who captured my heart. Are you happy? He whispered during a quiet moment. Sienna looked around at the gallery, at her dreams coming true, at the family she had found, at the man who had seen her value from the beginning, even if his methods had been unusual. Yes, she said, squeezing his hand. Happier than I ever thought possible. No regrets about our unconventional start, she laughed. It makes for a good story, doesn't it? How did you two meet? Oh, he paid me for dinner. Grayson winced. When you put it that way, hey, she turned to face him fully. It doesn't matter how we started. It matters that we found each other, that we fought for this. As he pulled her into his arms, cameras flashed. The press still found their relationship fascinating. But now Sienna didn't mind. Let them take pictures. Let them write their stories. She and Grayson knew the truth. Some things in life had no price tag. Some things, the most valuable things, couldn't be bought, only earned through patience, understanding, and love. Later that night, as they walked along the same riverfront where they had shared their first kiss, Grayson stopped and took both her hands. Remember the promise I made a year ago? He asked, his eyes reflecting the city lights. Sienna nodded, feeling the promise ring on her right hand. I'm ready to make a different promise now, if you are. He dropped to one knee, this time with all the grand gesture he had avoided before. Sienna Brooks, will you marry me? As tears filled her eyes, Sienna thought about how far they had come, from a business transaction to true partnership, from two separate worlds to one shared life. Yes, she said, her voice clear and certain. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the engagement ring onto her left hand, beside the promise ring she had never taken off. As he stood and pulled her into a kiss, applause erupted around them. Eleanor and Matt stepped out from where they had been hiding, waiting to share in this moment. Welcome to the family, Eleanor said, embracing Sienna. Officially this time. Sienna looked at Grayson, at the love shining in his eyes. We've been family for a long time already, she said. This just makes it official. In the end, what had begun with a price had become something priceless. A love strong enough to bridge different worlds, to overcome judgment and doubt, to transform them both into better versions of themselves. As they celebrated with impromptu dancing on the riverfront, Sienna knew they would face more challenges, more scrutiny, more obstacles. But none of it mattered as long as they faced it together. Some might still whisper about how their relationship began. Some might never understand what they saw in each other. But Sienna and Grayson had stopped caring about other people's opinions. They had found something authentic in the most unlikely beginning, and that was a story worth telling again and again for the rest of their lives. The end.